Hi, you are working on the pre-checks with all of this video footage, and this is just for you to be assisted with any part that may be giving you a challenge. So I invite you to skip forward to where you need to be if you don't need some of these pieces, and if you wish to follow the whole thing, you'll have the entire protocol. So the first thing you want to do is goal setting. You want to create a phrase that causes the body stress and that will shift as you go into some of the pieces. That is going to help you to bring everything into focus. So the first thing that I'm going to do is say, I easily and joyfully do the pre-checks. And if I check in with my body using my body pendulum, I'll just check where my yes is, and I'll check where my no is. Okay, so my goal is to easily and joyfully do my pre-checks. And the body goes, no, that makes me uncomfortable. And I go, good. Now I know that's a phrase that I want to work with. That's how you want to set up your goal setting. If I said I easily and joyfully do pre-checks and got yes, then it's easy for me to walk through all of them. But I know somewhere in this process, there's something that doesn't quite flow for me, and I'm going to find it while I'm doing this whole pre-check. Okay, when you have finished all of the pre-checks and you are going to go into a deep goal, then what you want to do is you may want to redo a goal and go from there. But for right now, we're just working on the pre-check. So this is the goal of the pre-check. If I was working on another goal, I could state my other goal, and then I could dive into my pre-checks. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is just bringing the breath into the body. You've got your goal phrase, and you want to repeat it 3 times while you're doing the breath exercise. So the breath could be just as simple as doing a meditation that you know, and it might be seated, might be standing. I'm actually going to show you commencement because this is something I like to work with. So I'm just going to step back a little bit, and I'm just standing with my feet shoulder width apart, and I'm putting my hands down in front. I'm going to push down into my feet and push. And as I do, the hands just raise and then let that go. My focus on is on a nice deep breath. And then let that go. And another deep breath. And now if I bring in my phrase, as I found my rhythm, I easily and joyfully do all the pre-checks. I easily and joyfully do all the pre-checks. And one more. I easily and joyfully do all the pre-checks. All right. That gives you a standing commencement as an option. And I'm just looking here at my notes. So I had meditation and deep breathing. You might have a way that you like to do your deep breathing. So maybe you have a cycle of breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. Maybe you want to bring in ionization. You want to breathe through the different nostrils. That's not part of my pre-checks, but you could put that in this space. This is the place for you to start really get the breathing happening and start to cultivate energy within lower dantian, so storing energy, and then start to emanate that out through the joints, bringing space into the body for change to occur, because the frequencies are going to start to change within the joints. Okay. The next part that we're going to work on has to do with awareness of the body. Now, this can be a whole lesson in itself because there's so many aspects we can look at. But you probably have an idea about how you normally walk, how you normally feel when you stand or you sit. This is a way for you to start to identify how does your body feel when it's not in flow, and then you can go back and assess it any time. And if you are doing the pre-checks And then you're going to dive into a goal and you're going to work on some other aspects. It is really delightful to put this posture awareness at the very end and go back to it, because you'll find after you've done movement patterns and pieces related to the goal, you will find that the whole body has changed and shifted. And taking a walk is very helpful because it resets everything, but also your awareness comes in. So you might, if you had tight lower back before, you might notice that the lower back lets go. If you have shoulders that hold tension, you might notice that they've dropped. You might notice on your feet, you stand a little bit more flat. You can feel the support of your foot. Again, that's a whole lesson in itself. So what we're doing is just noticing as we go walking. So if I take the walk, I'm just going to notice what my feet feel like as I step onto them, which it's not too bad, a little bit to the outside edge of my foot. I can feel my toes, maybe my third toe doesn't touch the floor quite as much as the other toes. Like my big toe for sure is hitting the floor, which means there's more pressure to the inside. I have a bit of a quick pace today when I'm walking, and that's probably because I'm thinking so much. And my arms are swinging, but they're not swinging as much as they could be. And my stride is kind of short at the moment. I can feel a little bit of tension in my neck on this side. Shoulders are not too bad. Lower back's a little bit tight. That's a typical thing for kind of the beginning of the day. Okay, my head on this, it is kind of floating today, actually. But I would say that my ribs are kind of sitting down onto my pelvis. They're not really lifted. And my legs are not too bad. My knees feel relaxed, and my hip's a little bit tight. So across this whole lower piece is a little tight for me. Okay, that just gives me an idea of where I'm starting and how all the tools that I'm going to use in the pre-check, but also in anything else I decide to do, will be able to influence how my body functions. And I'll be able to notice the change of flow in my body by the way that it feels when I go to move later. Because if everything is flowing, you move really nicely. If it's not flowing, you find those little tension pieces or the lack of awareness. So this gives you a really good gauge. Okay, so now I'm standing with my feet parallel, nice and relaxed. And I'm going to use the body pendulum to help me with a lot of what I want to do today. So I want to know if the body pendulum is going to be giving me the answers I'm looking for. In this room, there is some kind of a electrical current. It could be a water current, could be electrical, I'm not sure. It runs down the room kind of on this side, goes straight down the whole house actually. If I stand over here, I will get a body pendulum that gives me one indicator, but if I stand over there, I get a different indicator. So I'm telling you this because always check in for the mental command to see that your body pendulum is going to function the way you think it's going to function, because it can change based on your circumstances. So right now, I just need to know where a yes answer might go. So I just think yes, and it's forward. And then I'm going to think no, and that's backwards. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move over here and stand on this side, and I'm going to think yes, and then I'm going to think no. So you can see all I did was change slightly in the room, but there is something different that happens here, because most of the time I do get a yes going forward. It's very rarely I get it backwards. So I just wanted to show you that. Now your answer can be in any direction. Yes could go to the right and a no could go to the left. Some people go in a circle. It's just your answer, whatever your answer happens to be. Okay, so now I have my yes and my no, but now I need to check in with emotions. So I'm just going to think of something that makes me a little bit sad. Not a big sad, just a little sad. Okay, and that gives me a no. Okay, so that shows my energy where it's going to go. Then I'm going to think a happy thought, and that gives me a yes. Okay, I could use my body pendulum in a different way. That was giving me a yes and a no kind of response. So this would be giving me energy, this would be taking energy away. So my sad thought was taking energy away. But I can also muscle monitor with the body pendulum by doing no movement when everything is energetically flowing to shifting when there's a challenge in the energy flow. Okay, so if I think my happy thought, okay, I set it up this time that energy and flow comes with my happy thought. Like I set it up that if there's energy and flow, I will stay put. So my happy thought is giving me energy and flow. So now I'm going to go to my sad thought. Okay, and that was kind of forward, but to the right. Now I didn't ask for a yes, no indicator. I asked for if there's an energetic shift to just show me the shift. So if I go back to my happy thought, totally solid. And then if I go to my sad thought, there's a shift. Come back to my happy thought, and I'm standing still. So there's two ways that I use the pendulum, and depending on the kinds of things that I'm doing, sometimes I want that forward backward action of my yes no kind of action, and sometimes I just want to know if there's an energetic shift or if it's solid, the flow is happening. And usually I can feel that grounding and that centering coming straight in. Okay, so play with that a little bit, because as you get good at the body pendulum, it is very fast. Because once you're standing on your feet, and you can do it seated as well. Once you get good at it, seated is really easy to do as well. But you'll start to notice how it works for you. Now we're going to do an electrical check. So the electrical check, typically in a Touch for Health balance, is going to check central meridian. So that runs from the pubic bone to the bottom of the lip. So to check it, you would trace up, and with our body pendulum, I'm just going to use where just if it's solid, I stand where I am. And as I traced up, it feels good. Now I'm going to go backwards on the meridian and trace down, and that shifts the energy for me. So there was a change. So I'm going to bring it back up. And as I do that, I stand solid. Now I could have done that with the forward backward motion, but then it means I'm doing a lot of that. So I like to do just standing in place and just show me when something is not electrically holding. All right, so my central is working. If it hadn't been working, perhaps I traced up and there was an energetic shift. And you know, that's not quite right. So then if you trace down and it stands steady, that's backwards. It shouldn't be doing that. So you would flush the system, which would be go up and down, tracing the line. It's giving me goosebumps. Okay, 3 times. Then you're going to bring central up. Take your hands away 3 times. Okay, so now that's correcting it. So now we want to go back to trace up, see what the reaction of the body is. Trace down and see the reaction of the body, and trace it back up. So the integrity is there. Now there's a second part that I like to test, which is the governing meridian. Central and governing are treated as separate pieces in the documentation for most things. However, within the body, there's a figure 8 pattern that happens. Central comes up, but then there's this command that goes down the center of the body to connect to governing. And then governing comes from the bottom of the body. We usually trace from the tailbone, comes up the back, over the top of the head to the top of the lip. And then there's a line that goes back down in to link back up to the bottom of central. So if we check central, that works just to see if electrical is working, but it's not the full figure 8 pattern. So you might have something happening that's just a tiny little bit off on the other side of the pattern. So I like to check governing just to make sure there's full integrity in the electrical system. So I'm going to go from the tailbone at the back. My hands are just at the bottom. And I'm just going to trace up the back as far as I can, pick it up with my hands over the top of the head and to the top lip. Now again, my pendulum, I'm just looking for is there full integrity, and there is. So now I'm going to trace it backwards, over the head, down the back, to the base of the body. And it goes. So that's good because I traced it backwards. So now I want to come back up over the top, top lip, full integrity. Nothing moves. Okay, now if it had given me the opposite response, similar to what I showed you in central, then what I would do is flush the system the same way I did central. So scramble it back and forth, and I would just take my hands back and forth through that action. Trace governing 3 times the correct way. That resets it. And then go back and do your check again and check out the integrity. I find that if it's a goal that has a lot of deep meaning to it, sometimes we're just doing goals that are kind of here, but sometimes we get into the nitty-gritty of something, and that is enough for that figure 8 pattern to not quite function. So it's always a nice gesture to check with governing to make sure it's happy. Let's look at hydration. So one of the ways that we typically test for that is to just give a little tug on the hair. Now I'm still standing with my feet shoulder width apart, and I'm going to use my body pendulum. I'm going to use it. I could go for, yes, I'm hydrated. No, I'm not hydrated. Or I can just do it for there is flow. So when I pull on the hair, my body isn't moving. So I'm hydrated. But let's say I pull on the hair and the body moves. It's like, okay, it's not properly hydrated. So what am I going to do? I'm going to grab some water. I'm going to drink it. Swish it around in the mouth. All right. And then I'm going to go back and test again. All right. Now, you can check to see if there's chronic dehydration. I wouldn't check for it if I'm muscle tested or muscle monitored and hydration was there, then I wouldn't worry about it. But if every time I went back to hydration, it was just like, it's always off, then check in if it's chronic. So this would be tap your fingers across the top of the center of the head, and then just check in with the body pendulum. If there was some kind of movement, that would indicate there is chronic dehydration, which then you can address making sure you're getting enough water, but also you may want to rub between the xiphoid process and the belly button, central vessel 14, and when you've drunk the water, rub that point. And if when you're rubbing it, you find it's a little bit tender, that's an indication that the body may have some challenges with water flow and being properly hydrated. And this would be a great help when you're sipping water. Make sure you rub this point. And then you can keep checking in with that chronic dehydration check just to see if it's changed and when it does change, because you may notice the body's going to function differently, and taking a walk and doing a posture assessment would be very helpful at that time. Let's look at the switches now. The switches, which are often found in the Touch for Health material, they're found in Eden Energy Medicine, they're found in Brain Gym. You can see their importance, they show up everywhere. These are really valuable for setting up how information is coordinated within the body and then how the body functions in relationship to other parts of the body. So the first one is K27. So you have a little hollow. I'll just step forward. So you have a little hollow here, and you've got, you're taking your fingers, just pull them out a little bit, and there's like a little dimple there. Now you could rub with your fingers this way, and it's just in a little circle. Just give a little bit of a rub. And if you take 2 fingers, you can take the other hand and bring it in a cone shape towards your belly button. And that's going to link it up with the 5 elements. So that's the energy flow that gets all the systems working together. So if we put the 2 together, this is going to give us a complete link. All right. So now we are connecting, if you think about side to side, okay? Because you have fingers on one side, thumb on the other side, side to side. So this is right to left. So this is coordinating things that move right to left in the body. So when you want to walk and you're walking opposite hand to foot, that is coordinated by this piece. So now we're going to change and rub the other side. All right, so there's our K27s. Side to side switching. So now we're going to go to central and governing. So we're going to touch governing endpoint, central vessel endpoint. And I like to do it like I'm brushing my teeth. So I like to put my fingers onto the lips and move the skin back and forth. Some people will do it like this. So whichever way you prefer. What I've also found, because I use this with teaching dancers in the middle of a dance class, because of viral germs, we don't want to do that in the middle of a dance class. So what we've started doing is just imagining those 2 points and placing the fingers there and connecting to the points. So that gives you another option. Okay, so we have fingertips are going to go around the belly button in that cone to connect to the 5 elements. And then we have linking up here. And if you haven't done it this way before, you might want to try this and just feel what that connection is like. And when it's connected, very often I'll have a shift of energy. That tells me it's connected. So I can trade. So I could rub, which then I would just rub because I'm busy with the motor action of that. But if I'm connecting energetically, just putting my fingers facing those points, when it's connected, I'll have a shift. Okay, so that gives you another way of looking at it. So now that one is top to bottom. So that is the top half of the bottom has a conversation with the bottom half of the bottom. And that's important if you're trying to walk opposite hand to foot, but it's also important if you're reaching for things, lifting, going up and down the stairs. That is all going to be connecting, really important. So now we're going to go front to back. So this is on the tailbone. And again, fingertips are coming in front, and we are going to rub on the tailbone in a nice big circle, and then holding on to that. And then we can change and we can rub the other side. Now, shortcut for this would be, you could touch each point and see if there's an energetic shift. So if I was to go here, here, so everything I've done so far, everything is in alignment. I could do that. That would be a quick check rather than actually going through each one. So that's another option too. All right, we want to check the auricular energy. So that is, how is the auditory system functioning and is it providing the best response? In order to do that on ourselves, we're going to use the body pendulum, and you're just going to keep talking. So you're going to turn your head one direction and keep talking, keep talking, keep talking. And if there's no shift in energy, then you're good. That means the pendulum didn't move. So now I'm going to keep talking, and before I even get there, it's off on this side. Okay, so the ear that I'm checking is the back ear. So when I am talking and it's moving there, that would be the ear that I would want to rub. Now that for me seems like half a job. So I like to rub both ears because if you're already there, you might as well do both, right? Okay, so what is not in the manual at this point is when you turn to the left and you go to rub your ear. Now you could rub just straight rub, and you could just do this. You could rub this way, which is all great. But I want to do a little bit of brain integration. So what I'm going to do is when I turn my head to the left, I'm actually going to look the opposite hand. When I'm rubbing the ear, I'm going from the top, little bits of rubs all the way down the edge to the bottom. Then I'm going to go a little bit further in and just do like a little tug and pull down. And then the last one, I'm going to go right in and just really give a nice massage. Not a tough tug, just a nice massage. So I'm turning my head. And that is just linking up with the brain. So now I'm going to turn to the right, which is the side that showed the challenge. And I'm going to take that hand behind. And this one, I'm just going to talk. So I can keep giving you instructions, or I can do a math problem. 1 + 1 is 2. 2 + 2 is 4. 4 + 4 is 8. 8 + 8 is 16. There was even a pause in there because I had to think about what numbers did I say. So that tells me there was a little bit of a glitch in there. Okay, because usually it's pretty easy for me to do that. Okay, so now if I turn my head one direction and I start talking, body pendulum doesn't move, everything's good. Now if I go the other direction and I'm talking, body pendulum still doesn't move, everything's good. I could set it up as a movement forward or backward so that when I turn to this side, if everything's working, then I would get a yes. And this side, if everything's working, I have a yes. So I could do it that way, but I prefer to just have that pendulum standing, particularly since I'm turning side to side. Okay, now we can also do a time of day balance. So you can roll all that in there that you could check in to see what time it is. And so right now I'm filming in the morning. So I'm going to check in with my body clock and say 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m. body starts to move. Okay, so 8:10, 8:15, 8:20, 8:25, it starts to move. So I believe in my body, it's about 8:25. I'm just looking at the clock and it's 8:25. Okay, so my body clock is correct. But if your body clock hadn't moved at all, and let's say you kept going 9 o'clock, 10, 11, 12, 1, it thinks it's 1 in the afternoon, then you'll be, okay, let me reset the clock. So you can do the same ear rub that I showed you, but think about the time that it currently is. So for me, it would be 8:25. And so I would rub my ears. And again, it could be you rub it this way. Could be you rub one ear 3 times, the other ear 3 times. You could do it that way as well. That will reset the clock. You can go back in and just ask again. So you could go 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m. See where the body starts to move. And then that will give you the indication that you brought your body clock onto the current time. Visual inhibition. This one can often be done when you are doing the switches, but I like to pull it out to be separate. So if you were doing switches and you wanted to include the eyes, totally great. But I'm going to do this just a little bit separate from it because I just want to go back into the system and really check in if visual is working the way we want it to work. Number one, I want to get rid of my glasses. So I'm actually going to put them aside. That way, if the metal is bothering the energy field in any way, it's not anywhere near me. Okay, now I can check my eyes by scanning side to side. So I'm looking straight and I'm just going to scan across to the right and come back to center. I'm not going to move too fast. over to the left, back to center. No change. Now, if I had gone to the right and I had a shift, then I would know that energetically something's going on this right side. Then I could go back and I could find where. So if I start back at central, I can go across and it's getting kind of to the corner of the room here. So I know that somewhere in there, something's not quite working the way I want it to pick up cues. So what I can do is that's side to side. So I can go to my K27s, fingers making the cone around the belly button, and I can scan my eyes on that right side very slowly through the part that was challenged and then gradually increase the range so I have a bigger range until I can go right from the front to as far to the side as I can see without turning my head. And the body pendulum will adjust. I can ask a couple things. I can adjust if there's still a challenge in there. So I've got it all rubbed and then I can go back to that spot and check in with the spot. Everything looks good. And I can also scan the eyes side to side while doing that rub. And if there's no body pendulum movement, I know I've got everything engaged. Okay, we can do the same for up and down. So scanning from the top to the bottom. And then take your time to scan a little bit further wide, a little bit further wide. Very often, because of people who wear glasses, they'll have kind of the corners where the edge of the glass rim is. Actually, dyes don't work there just because they don't need to, because the glass frame is there. So you may find that that's a good place to check and then get that full range of motion in. And then that would be correction is up and down. So it's the top of the lip to the bottom of the lip. Okay. Again, if you can't touch because whatever else you've been doing and the hands, you don't know that the hands are clean, then just make sure you connect in. Okay. Now you can go long distance, short distance, which would be rubbing the tailbone. So I have a window to look out. So then I can go long distance, but then I can come into the room and I can go short distance. I can do long distance with the eyes up, long distance with the eyes down, and then I can adjust the same on the inside, low and high. As I do that, I'm just holding that back part. Okay, and I can see, sorry, I don't need to do the correction yet. That is the correction. So you got long distance to short distance. There's no movement in the pendulum, you're good. If there's movement, you're gonna rub and do long distance, short, long distance, short, long distance, short several times. And then you can try to move your eyes so it's not always just to the same direction. And then you can come back and recheck. Long to short, see if the body moves. Now, what I've also discovered is we don't look by standing still in space, except maybe if we're staring at our computer. So I like to adjust where I am and turn my body as well. So I might go scanning side to side, which would be my eyes, but then I'm also going to change my body in space. And I may check all the way around side to side. I can come back to my body pendulum and see if there's any shift. Now, I could put that into circuit, which would be even more accurate for me. So I could put it into my jaw, and then putting into circuit is another course in itself as well. But I'm just going to just say to you, when you open the jaw, information goes into that jaw about what's happening and what you're doing. So if I'm moving around, I'm scanning my eyes side to side, I'm moving, I'm moving, I'm moving, I open my jaw. And then with the jaw is saying, in that space, moving all the way around, scanning your eyes side to side, information's in the jaw, check the pendulum. Pendulum was fine. Okay, so that's another thing that you can do, because some people, like if you were doing golf, you have your eye on the ball down here, which is an up down, but then you shift to a side to side. And that is all with movement patterns in the body. It would be very nice to know that through that system, there might be something that's not quite linking up to the eyes, and you can do that through the movement sequence. So that gets you a little bit more in depth. If you just want to just do a quick check, You can do it that way, but know that you can take it deeper. Okay, so now we have the gates. The gates are the points on the top of the foot that coordinate or give information about the coordination of the way the body's functioning in relation to space and walking. And to test it, usually we're standing, particularly if I'm working with dancers. So I'm going to put my fingertips on the top of the foot in between the bones. And then I'm going to open my jaw to put the information of those points into circuit so I can come back up and stand to use my body pendulum. So I'm going to demonstrate it first. I'm just going to use one foot as an example. So I'm going to go down. I'm going to place my fingers across the top. And I'm just going to put my thumb on the outside knuckle, just below the bump of the knuckle in towards the foot, and then open my jaw. And there's no movement in the pendulum. If there was, then I would know I need to rub the foot. So now I'm going to go to the other side. My jaw is closed. And now I'm going to open it. And there it goes. Okay. So that tells me the gates are okay on the left side for information, but not on the right side. There is a whole Feet First System foot rub that you can find either on Facebook for Feet First System, or you can find on my YouTube channel under Dance Integration, which is the bioenergetic wellness dance warm-up. The whole foot rub is in there. But for this purpose, just to get that in, I'm going to rub my fingers firmly down the bones on the top of my foot, and that'll engage the gates. And then I'm going to take my fingers on either side of the knuckle of the big toe and the little toe, and I'm going to rub on the side there. All right, that will get the gate. So now I'm going to go back and retest. Open my jaw. Definitely solid, just sucked right into that. So that would be how you could easily check the gates if you were doing things in a standing position, and you certainly could do it seated. You have the hyoid bone. So the hyoid bone, you're just going to take your fingers very gently onto your neck. Okay, and I'll just come forward so you can see what I'm doing into the sunlight. Okay, so very gently on the side. And all you're going to do is stand with the body pendulum. If there is movement, then you know the hyoid bone needs to just have a little bit of motion added to it. Mine is holding fine. So if it moved, then I would know something needs to be checked. So if it needs to be checked, I would just touch onto the side. Body pendulum doesn't show me anything. Touch on the side with my thumb for the other side. Still nothing. Then I could go pull forward, and it's so gentle. It's just like a suggestion on the skin. So very gently, and then I could go backwards. Then I could go up. Then I could go down. Then I could go in a circle towards the right side, and then I could go in a circle towards the left side. If at any time there was a movement in the pendulum, then I would know I need to go do that. So let's say I go side to side, and when I put my thumb on and it's over to the left and there's movement that goes to the left, my body just so easily agrees. Okay, then I would know I just want to just do very gentle movement, and it's hardly anything. So I'm just coming in again, just very gentle tapping, very gentle, side to side. And while I'm doing that, I want to walk in any direction. So I could be forward, backward, turning, crossing over. So, and I just keep tapping side to side while I'm doing all those actions. And then I would come back to the pendulum, and I would go side to side, checking both. And if there's no movement, we've got it. Okay, we are to joint resonance. This one can look a little bit daunting, but has so much incredible information to share with us. So I'm going to walk you through the pieces of this. And I'm going to start with, we need to muscle monitor the psoas muscle. The psoas muscle starts in the center of the back and attaches to the top of the femur, and it helps us to move forward or to lift the leg. I'm telling you all that just so your mind is connected to it. All right, the check for that is to turn the toe out and swing the leg from front to back. Our check is going to be to push on that leg. Now, it's our check, which is a little bit harder to do on ourselves, but you get better at it. You start to understand. What I've learned is it's not so much, will this leg hold firmly? Because a lot of people will go, I'm not really sure. The other leg will tell me the truth. If I fall over or my foot quivers, that will be an indication that there is not enough integrity in the system, and that's all I need to know. So we want to know this muscle is going to help us to check joint resonance. So it's a little bit different than using the pendulum. So we're going to go turn out, and we're just going to apply just light pressure onto the leg, and it seems to be holding. But let's go to the other side and see what happens. So if I go here, and again, your range of motion is here. It's good to always do a little bit of that so the body knows. And my foot is pushing to the outside. I could feel it. You might not have seen it, but I could definitely feel it. So I go to check. I can't even hold that. So I go to check, and I already know my balance is off. That means just correct it. So 2 fingers above the belly button and 2 fingers out. And just rub in those points. Firm pressure. So we're just using neurolymphatics to correct the muscle and the system. Okay, and then we're going to go between T8 and T12, so center of the back, which is a little bit challenging to reach ourselves. You could go next to the door frame and rub there. I'm just going to use one hand because sometimes I can get it a little bit easier. And also you could have a back scratcher. That works as well. You could roll a ball on the floor. Okay, so I got that. So now I'm going to go back to that leg. Now, do you see where my balance is much different? Still not quite there, but pretty close. So I now know what that feels like, so I can check in with the joints. So I want to know what the ankle, knee, and hip joints are feeling like. If I have checked the gates and they are already correct, and I have checked the hyoid bone, those are 2 places that need to be checked first before I get to the joint resonance. So now what I want to do is just jump up and down and see how those are working. And then I go back to my psoas muscle, and you notice my balance is completely there. The leg feels like it has full integrity, and the same on this side. If it hadn't have been, then I would tap my fingers just firmly. I'll just do on one side so you can see. In the little dimple between the foot and the leg bone, I would have just tapped into there, talus mortis joint. All right, and I would do it on both sides. Then I would tap underneath the knee, just underneath the kneecap. And then I would go into the crease of the leg, and I would just want to soften the hip and then tap into there. Now, this is a little bit different than doing this on lying on a table, and somebody would be able to put space between the joints by just giving a little tug on the leg. But because we're working on ourselves for these pre-checks, this is how we can improvise. Okay, so that would have been the correction I would have made, and then I could go back and I could jump up and down and just see how those are working, go back and test, and then test. Okay. Now I say test, it is monitoring. So I'm not really checking, does the psoas muscle have full strength? I'm just asking, does the electrical system, when I jump up and down, does that whole system stay intact? That's what I'm really asking. So that's why it's just very light pressure, and I'm just looking for energy shifts. So my ankle is a good indicator right there. We do use the psoas because it's closely connected to that joint action. Okay, I'm coming a little bit closer. 1, to turn the page on my book. And the other is to give you a little picture. So the thumb is going to come to the inside of the finger joint. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask if there is anything happening between the joints in the spine. And this little finger mode is giving that indication that's what we're looking for. And then we can go back to muscle monitor and see if there is anything going on. So I'm just going to back up so you can watch the pendulum. So I've put my finger mode in, standing on my feet. And what I'm going to do is just do a little jump up and down to get that spine, because now I'm focusing on my spine. And I put my finger mode in, and the body goes, ah, there is something going on. Okay, so now I can go to the spine chart that you have, which shows spiritual points, spine locations, frequency, the notes that are possibly used, plus you've got spiritual connections and emotional connections as far as words that can be used. There's a compilation of information from different studies that I've done. So I can now go in and I can muscle monitor lumbar 2, lumbar 1, and then I can go through all thoracics 1 to 12, and then I can go cervical C1 to C7. So I can do all of those pieces, muscle monitoring, using the body pendulum to find out where there might be something. And just to give an example, if I use the body pendulum, let's say I go lumbar 2, lumbar 1, thoracic 12, 11, 10. My body moves on 10. I'm going to go through until I find all the points, because there may be more than one and they may be linked together. So let's say I get thoracic 10 only. So then I can go, okay, its chakra point is its number 17. It has to do with harmony, has to do with unloved, unappreciated, and it has about finding community. So it has the note of F sharp, which is a connector note. So F sharp is between F and G. So just to know that the connectors have a special relationship. And so this is a key piece for connecting information. And if I needed to know the hertz, it's 185. And that would be if I wanted to add that frequency into the room. I could do that knowing that that note was there. But what I can do is muscle monitor. Do I need to know something about harmony? Do I need to know something about unloved or unappreciated? And do I need to know something about finding community? I could definitely dig deeper. So based on what my goal is, today is to easily and joyfully do the whole pre-check. So let's say it's what comes up is finding community. So finding people to share this with and practice might be something that's important, just as an example. Okay, so let's say we found that thoracic 10. Thoracic 10 is lower part, kind of in the, just below the ribs, sorry, just at the bottom of the ribs, still on the ribs. So what I would do is I could rub in that point to engage it. So wherever the point were, you would be rubbing up and down, not sideways, up and down, because you want to engage it. If you rub sideways, that would be shutting it off. We want to engage it, so we're going to run up and down. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my finger mode, and I'm going to bounce just to check in with that spine again, and then I can use the body pendulum. Okay, so it's saying any subluxation is no longer there. So now what I want to do is just jump up and down, and now I'm still on the spine. I'm going to come back into my psoas. I'm going to fall over on the other side. It's like, no, there's still something there. So without that subluxation check in there, I'm now just going to go back through. So if I go, I would look for all the points, but just for this, I'm going to look for just one. So C1, 2, 3, 4, C4. Okay. So in that case, then I'm just going to rub up and down along the neck, a little above it, a little below it, again, up and down, not side to side. Okay, goosebumps, that's always a good indicator. So now I'm just gonna jump up and down again. Feel that space. Okay, go back to the psoas. Oh, that feels so much better. Oh, there's, nope, there it is. Okay, so I just want to make sure. If I'm not quite sure, I could take my fingertips together, which means complete and robust. Everything's holding. Okay, it just took a minute for it to all link up. So that would be how you could work with joint resonance. It looks a little bit complicated to get started, but it is so delightful to know that you can put space in between each of the vertebrae and you can open up and improve communication that's coming down that whole central nervous system. And that goes out to all the organ systems. So it's a really important check to do. The check for hip, knee, and ankle, also very valuable because the way that you move, the way the connections are happening to the floor, and the way that your whole body is going to move in space, that's all important to know where the space is in between the joints. And we don't usually talk about that. All right, let's look at the cloacals. Now, this is another one where you go, oh my goodness. It is so worth it. This is the information that comes through the shoulder seams and through the hip seams and coordinates all aspects of multidimensional movement and opportunity within the whole electrical field. So this is a really important check to do. Finger mode, you can touch the fingernail of the pinky finger to the fingernail of the thumb. All right, and you're just holding that, checking in with the pendulum. Mine says it's very happy at the moment, but I'm going to pretend it's not so I can show you how to use this. We do need to use the jaw to put things into circuit. So we need to put the leg action into circuit so we can then test the arm with the idea that the leg and the arm would have been tested together if we were working on somebody else. When we're working on ourselves, we have to find a way around that. So the first thing we're going to do is check the front of the body for the key pieces. Here, 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 here. Okay. And with that, we're going to push out first. So I'm going to push my right leg out and my right arm out at the same time by using my jaw. So it goes like this. And if there's no movement of my arm, then I know we're good. So now I'm going to go the other side. And that's okay. All right. If it was not, as I put that tiny bit of pressure, so it's less than 2 pounds of pressure onto the arm, it would have moved, or I would have noticed the body doing some kind of wobble. Okay. Now that was one side, other side. Now we have to do a cross because when you walk, you have a cross. So I'm going to do the leg, put it into circuit, check the arm. That one's okay. And I'm going to check the other side. And that's okay. Now, if it was not okay, I would find the points that were related to what I found. So let's say I was off on pushing out on the leg and the arm on the same side. I would put my fingertips into just below the eye socket, well, just into the eye socket, so right at the top of the bone. And I would touch the pubic bone, the edge of the pubic bone on the same side. And I would hold that until there was a change in the body pendulum. Okay, and it's very light hold because it's electrical. Now let's say it was off this leg to this arm, then I would go into the eye here, into the pubic bone here, hold that till there's a sway. That's how you're going to check the front of the body. That's how you make your correction. You could go back and check them again. Okay, so now we need to do the back side of the body. So that would be the connectors at the shoulder that are opposite here. And that is going to be at the sit bones, also from the back side. And that's the information on the back of the pelvis. Okay, so now instead of pushing out, we're going to push in. So same thing. So I'm pushing in, open the jaw. Okay, and the other side. All right, and now I need to go opposite. So, and the other side. Okay, so I didn't find anything, but let's say I did. So let's say I pushed in and in. So that would have been opposite. I would have touched the tailbone on that side, that leg, and then I would have touched behind the ear, 2 fingers, just behind the ear. There's a little soft spot right behind the ear, those 2 points. And I would have connected those 2 points and waited till the body pendulum brought everything in. If it had been on the same side, tailbone or sit bone, and then touching on the opposite side and wait for the body pendulum. And then I would go back and recheck. That's cloacals. Seems very confusing. It can be quite quick when you get used to it, and very, very profound. Let's look at the cranials. So this is how the skull is holding tension, and you want to have space so that things fluidly move within the skull, but also around. And the brain function is based on how everything is functioning here, but also the communication that goes from here to here. This is really important. Okay, first of all, you want the finger mode for that. So you're going to bring your fingers in and you're going to collect the pinky to the thumb. Okay, so it's a little bit different than the other finger mode we were using. And then you want to place it on bladder 52. So a little bit challenge maybe for some people to reach there. So our intention is to find that bladder 52, which is in the middle of the back. Okay, and it's on the side channel. So I've got my spine running here and my fingers on the side. Okay. Now the other thing we want to do is we want to check gluteus medius as the indicator muscle. So we're going to use the body pendulum, but we're also going to use gluteus medius. So in order to test that one, I'm just going to back up a little bit so you can see me. I'm just going to put one leg up and I would be pushing in. Now, same as with the psoas muscle, okay, you've got this action here. You're going to notice how your stability is on your other leg. And then it's just a light push, less than 2 pounds of pressure onto the leg. Now, again, because it's a leg, it can feel like it's sturdy, but you're going to know by the reaction of the rest of the body, once you've engaged that muscle, how is the rest of the body functioning, whether or not it's going to hold or not. Okay, so let's pretend it hasn't held. And so what could you rub in order for that to be engaged and working properly? So gluteus medius is on circulation sex meridian. So that would be tracing underneath the arm out the middle finger. That would be circulation. So you could trace it 3 times and you could do both sides. Okay, so that would be one option. The other option is to rub L5. So just taking your knuckles and then just rubbing in and rub L5. And another option would be, those were neurolymphatics. The other option would be across the pubic bone. And you could rub that as well. Okay, so that gives you a couple of options. Then you would go back, check in, lifting that leg, notice what your other leg is feeling like. Now, if you have trouble with balance in general, you could hold on to something, but just make sure you are tuning into how the foot is articulating on the floor and what the ankle is feeling like, because it is an indicator for how things are functioning. Okay, so we now want to know the different points across the skull. So in your notes, you have starting at C4, which is central meridian, and that's on the lower lip. So what we're going to do is take that finger mode. All right, first of all, we're going to touch the back to find out if we even need to do anything with cranials. Sorry, I was jumping ahead before with central vessel, but we're just going to check in. So I'm going to just lift my leg and I'm falling over before I even get started. So I already know, okay, there's something going on here. Okay. Now, if you had trouble with balance, maybe you want to put your hand back onto there, put that signal into circuit, into your jaw. And that might give you a different, because as soon as you touch, that might be too much, throwing you off balance. Okay, so I've gone here and I've lifted. Okay, and I can feel my foot is wobbling. So I can feel that there's something not quite with full integrity. So I'm going to continue on. So what I'm going to do is hold on to that and touch the points. Okay, so we're going to start CV24. All right, and we're just going to open the jaw. Okay, then we're going to come up to governing 27, open the jaw, and over I go. Okay, so now we need to make a correction. So governing 27, what I want to do is put that into circuit. So I'm just going to bring this back, put it into circuit. And then I'm going to hold the fingertips on my forehead and balance ESRs. So my jaw would stay open. I'm talking to share with you. So here goes. And then the body pendulum would engage when it has been activated. Okay, so for me, I'm going to just try that again. So I'm going to touch the point, open the jaw. And there it goes. Okay, so now I can go into this point and I can check on gluteus medius, and it's solid. Even my foot is solid. I can feel that much more solidified down into my foot. Okay, so then we go to governing 24, which is between the eyebrows. So I'm going to take that point in there and test. That one's all right. So then I'm going to go to the center of the forehead. I'm just going to go into right into my hairline and check in there. And then I'm going to go anterior fontanelle on the top. Then I'm going to go to posterior fontanelle, which is kind of at the crown of the top of the head. And we'll have that one. Okay, then I'm going to go to midway down the back on the right side. So I've got the skull, you've got that nice big bump there as your landmark. I'm going to go on the right side and I'm going to hold that. And then I can do the same going to the other side. I can hold that. Okay, now I need to put both hands on the back. So this one is for governing 15. So you're putting both hands on the back just below the base of the skull. So you've got the bump here. You're going to put it below that. And you got to put that into your jaw. Okay, and that's going to hold. If it didn't, then I would go through, hold the position, and then I would open the jaw, fingertips to the forehead. Okay, now the last thing you want to do is place 2 fingertips at governing 20. So you had anterior fontanelle at the front and posterior fontanelle at the back. It's a little bit forward of that, not quite to the center. It's a little bit back of center. And you're going to take 2 fingers, okay, and place it there. And then you have governing 2, which is on near your tailbone. So you're going to bring that together and just hold those 2 points to allow for the connection to happen. And the body pendulum will shift when it's ready. And you have that there. Now, we can check in with the whole system. Fingertips together just to make sure. So that's saying, yes, it's complete. Okay, that's how I use that. I look for the movement of, yes, it's complete. When I do that one, don't know why, rather than holding steady, but you could hold steady. And the other thing you want to keep in mind is that you now have fluid flowing through the central nervous system in a way that it might not have been flowing before. So in that case, take a few moments, go for a little walk, have a drink of water, give the body a little bit of time to process, because that is a big one. So sometimes nothing shows up, sometimes it does, but this is a really good one just to be prepared for. Now you can put 2 fingers into each point. I actually use the finger mode Oops, sorry, I'm closing the fingers up. I actually use the finger mode for each one, which also works. So you can use whichever way you prefer. And the other thing that I just want you to keep in mind is that this is just looking for ways for the body to energetic. Okay. All right, it's time for dermatomes. I think this is one of the favorite across all the things that we've done in Qi integration in the program, and it comes from Wayne Topping. Originally, that's where I learned it from, and I have used the body pendulum, so the recommendation was to rub for 3 minutes, but I actually wait until the body pendulum tells me there's been an energetic shift, and then I know we're good. This is about finding points on the head, which link up to other points on the body. In utero, when the fetus was developing, everything started as one and then started to divide, but also then as the fetus grew, head came around, feet came out, okay? Everything separated. And in that separation, parts of the face and the head all have links to everywhere else in the body. So what we're doing is we are rubbing a point to affect something else in the body, which is really cool. So in your chart, you have the different points you can rub, and the easiest way to do this is actually to just call out the numbers. So then you know which nerve plexus or chakra is the one that would like some attention. So if I just count 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. So my body moves on 3. So I'm going to go to what that means. That means sacral chakra or the abdominal area. And the feeling that is expressed here is hope. And it links up to the tendons, which is interesting because if I look at what my goal is, then I know that the tendons are representing where there may be some tension, and the tendons link muscle to bone. So they're a barometer for how our feelings are. And if we're feeling hopeless, we would have more tension trying to support us. Okay, just to give you an answer, a way of how that works. Okay, there can be weak, soreness, stiffness, abdominal tension. Those may be physical things that you will notice. So you can draw awareness to those pieces, or even be aware that if they show up, perhaps you might want to come back to dermatomes again. All right, so on the second page, it has the picture of what it is that you would be rubbing. So I am looking for abdominal, which was number 3. And I should know this one off by heart. So this is the chin. So this would be pulling over the crest of the jawbone. So you're just coming across there, firm rub. Okay, and I'm just going to come all the way along. And oh, there goes my body. It's starting to move. Okay, and that's how I'll know when I'm done. And that's it. So firm pressure. So you just need to follow the arrows on the head, different spots on the top of the head to put that all together. Very powerful. One that I do notice, especially when it's winter, cold kind of seasons and the nose tends to fill up with some mucus. This is wonderful for clearing that out. And so very often I find myself quickly doing this one just out of a kind of a habit. So I hope that's helpful for you. Let's do cross crawls. So the cross crawls are coordinating your movement patterns. Everything that we've done all the way through the pre-checks has led to that. And this is like an integration. One is go for a walk and assess how you now feel. The second part is engage actions of movements that go across the body, but also link up front to back, side to side, up and down. And so we have in the front, I'm going to transition to the back. So I'm going to move to touch my toe. And you'll notice I'm using big arms because you want to move the shoulder seam as well as the hip seam. And then I'm going to go sideways. Okay, so with this, you're able to put everything together. If you notice that you had trouble linking from one to another, then you know there is a little bit of disconnect. It would be very easy to go back to your switches and re-coordinate if you needed to. Otherwise, this is just engaging it. Okay, and I'm hoping that you just noticed with that transition how easy it is to transition into it, or if it's not, go back to your switches, and if the trouble was side to side, then you may want to do K27, go back and try it. You'll probably find it's quite easy then. Okay, the other piece then also is your awareness. Go for a walk. After you've done all the pre-checks, you may notice the body has shifted significantly. Now, I've done a lot of things across recording. My hips have completely released. So as I'm stepping, there's like this fluid flow that's coming through the hip. And also my feet upon the floor are really rolling through the feet now. Instead of I wasn't like stepping on top of the floor, but now I'm really rolling through the feet. So just to be aware, gives you a different idea. We made it to the end of the pre-checks. It can be a daunting task, but as you get good at each little piece, you can just find out, do I need it? Carry on. Do I need it? Carry on. Do I need it? Carry on. Using some of those finger modes will help. When you get to the end, we have two things. Cook's hookups. So very often I'm doing standing things. I'm usually in a classroom setting. I'm not sitting down. So I tend to do things that are easy standing. You could easily do this seated. Crossing one foot over the other, creating the figure 8 pattern, putting your tongue on the roof of the mouth, making that connection. And the body pendulum will tell you when you're done. So dancers love this one. And then holding here. And then we know we're complete. And that's the pre-check. It in itself can get you to have a goal that's flowing. So if I go back to, I easily and joyfully use the pre-checks, and I just use my body pendulum, and that's that yes, no. This side of the room that I told you about is over there. I'll just move over a little bit more though. Okay, and so I think about easily, joyfully going through all the pages in the book, being able to engage all the different aspects that I used. This body is not moving. There isn't anything that's bothering me. I could go through the list of all of them to see dermatomes, cloacals, joint resonance. My body isn't moving on any of those. So I feel really confident that I can now do the pre-checks. If you got through all the pre-checks and you want to dive deeper into goal setting, do your goal setting, and then in Qi integration, we would go to our checklist of activities that we could do that were movement based, and we bring the flow into it. You will have engaged everything to be in a package. Adding that goal on and doing some more movement increases your package. And it means really that when you go to do the movement patterns that the body's looking for, it's already balanced so much that relates to movement that now it might be just one little tiny correction. It could be something like spine turn 3 times, and that's it. The whole goal's engaged because you did the pre-checks. The whole body was in alignment already, and now all it needs is that movement to integrate. And that's it. So I hope you find the value in the pre-checks as I have, in that they created themselves to be in that list. And so I hope that you enjoy using them the same way. Let's talk a little bit about life view. So at the end of the pre-checks. There is a little section that explains the vantage point from which you're looking at things. This isn't really a pre-check, it's kind of like an extra, but it is really critical to how you look at things and how you approach things. And if you're using this pre-check with clients or with a group, having them think about what is their viewpoint will also change completely how the goal setting goes, how the changes in energy flow will be created, and the long-term effects that come from that. And for a lot of people, this is when you change the filter, it's like a whole new world out there. So let's just look. So this is on, this is just after you've got your cook's hookups. I'd like to say page 13, unless, you know, it's always evolving, might be slightly different, but so we have the pre-checks all complete. And now we can look at the chart where it says energy level. So you could have low being 1, high being 10. So where you could do an evaluation. And then we have ways of experiencing life situations. So we have your physical experience, we have our mental thoughts, we have our personal experience with it, we have the lived experience of our history that leads us into how we see things. We have our experience with and through others. So what other people will tell us we're supposed to be experiencing or will influence the way that we're experiencing things. And then we have our guidance from divine or destiny or experience. So this is about if you believe there's a purpose for you being here and fulfilling your life's purpose, or that you pray to a God of your choice and that God is helping and supporting you. And then you have just the intuition that you receive that sometimes you have no idea where it came from, but it's there. So we have a lot of ways of knowing things. So then we have what most people do in response to making a change is they need something as an impetus. So it could be a pain. So if we take the example of the knee pain, which is in your chart, the knee pain is where we're starting. So my energy level is about a 4 and the pain in my knee is like an 8. And so I better do something, or someone better do something for me to get rid of this knee pain. So your whole lens is through the knee pain. So what does that mean? Your mental thought is you're afraid to actually move on that knee. It hurts too much and you're probably going to damage it if you do some more movement, so you won't move. Then you have your personal experience. If you stop moving, then things aren't going to get done. So now your anxiety level's going up because you have this pile of stuff that didn't happen, but you don't feel that you can move because if you move, there's going to be more pain. And then you have your lived experience, which is you're doing less. You can't get out and around. If you go out in the community, you can't go up and down the stairs. You're having trouble getting in and out of the car. And so you just don't go out. It's just easier to not go out. You ask somebody to pick up things for you, or you go shopping less often. And now you've pulled yourself out of community and connection with other people. So you're now a little bit more isolated. And that means your personal experience has changed. So then you have less time with friends and you have more quiet time, and then it becomes more inactive time. I don't want to move my leg because my knee hurts, so I'm just not going to move. I'm going to rest it. That's what most people will say. I'm going to rest it till it's better. Resting isn't going to change any variables. Something else has to happen to change the variables. So yes, you don't want to move with pain, but there are lots of other things that you could do. However, your lens has said, I'm not going to do anything right now. I'm just going to sit and wait. And after I've waited, then hopefully I'll be able to do something. That's the lens. Okay. And the last part is you start to have this introspection. You have increased awareness, identifiable experiences. And that is, I feel so much better if I sit on the couch and I don't walk on my leg. I feel so much better if I don't go shopping. I feel so much better if I stay in my house. It's okay that I don't talk to too many people because I like being by myself. That's okay. And you can see how you could completely change your world because you had a knee pain at the beginning. Let's flip that around. So let's go to a place where we don't start with any pain. We're not waiting for a signal from the body to tell us how we should feel. We actually decide we want to draw awareness first. So we go to our guidance from divine destiny or experience. And that is, I choose to be aware today. I choose that I'm going to take an action today. And you set up your day to start there. So you've done all the pre-checks, or maybe you didn't. Maybe you want to do Cook's hookups just to get the figure 8 pattern to flow. Maybe that's it, or you chose switches maybe. And while you're doing that, you take awareness of, what kind of day do I want? I want a really creative day. I've got 3 projects that are my top priorities to finish. And I have been dying to get outside and go for a walk, put on my snowshoes, clean up the yard, water the flowers, whatever it happens to be. Those are the pieces I want to bring in. And I feel really good when I think about those things in my life and what I want to do. So then you shift over to your mental thought. I am so incredibly grateful that I reflected on what I really want today. There's time and space for everything I chose today, and I know I can get it done. And then you have a plan that you can put in place. I'm going to start with this and this. Then I'm going outside for a couple of hours to do the walking or the gardening or whatever. And then I'm going to come back in. I'm going to finish this project. And the evening is mine. It's wide open. That's my plan. Then you move over to having that plan, bringing in any awareness or limitations you think you might have. So if I'm going to go out in the garden, I do want to be careful of my knee, but I already know that I have that special bench that I can sit on that will be good for my knee. Or I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to muscle monitor how far I can go and what kind of direction. Do I go uphill, downhill? Do I just go on the flats? And I make sure that I don't exceed my limits. So if I say, when I muscle monitor, I get walk for 15 minutes. I don't exceed 15 minutes. I do 15 minutes and honor my body, check in if I need to do any other pre-checks, anything else movement-wise the body wants, and I honor it. So that is part of really engaging the plan. Then we go to the lived experience. Now that you thought about what you really want, you put your plan in place, you have now empowered yourself because your actions are all about the goals and the objectives and what you desired at the start of the day. We go then to our experience with or through others. This is our connection and community. I'm going to go for a walk by myself because I actually just want to enjoy nature. But I would love to go for lunch with so-and-so and have tea or whatever. And that's how I'm going to connect with people today. Or once I've finished all the pieces that I need to do on my own today, it's my chance in the evening to connect, and I'm going to call so-and-so that I haven't spoken to in a while. So now you figure out how you're going to put in connections that work to enhance what you want, but don't detract and sidetrack you from getting things done, which puts your anxiety level up, right? But you're choosing relationships for reasons. And it could be one of your projects is to collaborate with someone. And so you have the connection that you do there. Okay, that leads us over to the knee pain. Where was the knee? It wasn't actually even really in all of the plan, except to say that, oh, when I get to the garden, I'll make sure I have my bench out. So the knee pain isn't any part of your planning of the day, but now you can look at it and go, okay, I should check out the knee just to see how it's doing today. And you go, the pain's about a 4. And then you ask, what can I offer you right now so that I can take out some of that pain? And then the body says, you know, I'd like to do spine rotation. I'd like to do up and down the stairs, just pull out some of the things from the Qi integration program and engage it. That's it. So it's a completely different way of thinking about how you approach what you're doing. And for yourself and for clients and for groups, bringing them around to thinking in that same context. What is it you really want? And then put the plan in place to get there.